Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another podcast episode today. We go live and then we put this on podcast world in the same week, usually in just a few days. We're quick, super turnaround here. But every week, we hire and bring in amazing speakers to teach us powerful life lessons that ultimately lead to growth, whether that's personal or professional growth. We believe in a whole, well rounded person and provide actionable advice to help you succeed in all areas of life. And today's episode is no different. My question to all of you watching is, have you ever signed up for big change? And I mean life threatening, big, huge things. Well, no, right? Most of us have never signed up for huge life changes, yet they're all inevitable. And today's guest is going to teach us about these big life changes that are inevitable to all of us and how we can overcome them. So, my guest is Amber Williams. Amber, welcome to the show and please introduce yourself, my friend.
Thank you. Hi, Tara, and everyone else who's listening.
Yes.
My name is Amber Williams, and I am a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for about 20 years and just recently decided to become a health and life coach. And so that's what I'm doing these days. So,
I love that.
yeah.
A health and life coach. That's an interesting transition. It's still very much, related to, the overall well being of a person.
Mhm, mhm.
Why health and life coaching?
Ooh, what a question. So, as I was doing my nursing career, I was actually a nurse educator for the last 6 years that I was working at the hospital. And there were just some things that had happened personally and at the hospital that I was ready to kind of go out on my own and do my own thing. And so I left my job of where I'd been for 16 years, uh, just left it on May 5th of 2023 and started my own business. I was doing content writing, photography, some creative design work. And after working with my own coaches, thought, you know what? I can do this. And I was kind of missing that working with people, helping them with life events. I was an oncology nurse. I'm still certified as an oncology nurse. And so, yeah, I was just like, you know what? It's time to help people again. So that's why.
I
That's
love that. So, your life is great right now. You've got all these amazing things going on. You're
Mhm.
running a successful coaching business. You're helping other people and lead other people through personal change and through these life events, right?
Yeah.
But was it always this way? I'd love to hear and, take us back to a time when maybe it wasn't always this way.
Yeah. So in October of 2021, my husband passed away, and it was not expected. He had been sick for um, about 3 weeks or so, in and out of the hospital a couple of times. And on that third time that he had to be admitted, uh, he didn't make it. He died about 4 days after being admitted from septic shock. And that was yeah, that just totally rocked my world. Like I said, I wasn't expecting it. Um, just had all these new things that I had to start navigating. And they're little things that you don't think about, like, what are the passwords to all these things, that he took care of that I didn't, and, um, taking care of the house. He was retired, so he took care of house things. Um, I did the work, I would come home, I'd maybe make dinner, sometimes he'd make dinner. Now everything fell on me,
Wow.
and it was new to me. We'd been married for 13 years, and it was a great intra-dependent relationship. And so the whole independence thing was like, and I had been, oh, I was so independent before we got married. Like I traveled the world. I was, going to Africa and Europe and doing things on my own. And then we got married and then I loved this, thing where I could depend on him to do things and he could depend on me, that interdependence. So becoming completely independent again, just was like, how to do this. And it took me some time. Um, it was about 9 months after he died that I started posting on LinkedIn. Um, what had happened, one of my research articles had been published, and so then at that point, um, somebody asked me if they could put it on LinkedIn. I was like, "Sure." I don't know what this is all about, but then I started seeing LinkedIn as this community and finding people, other women who had lost their spouses, other, um, you know, people who were in their own grief journeys, once I started posting about mine, and so it just started being this really cool thing where I found these people and I was starting to tell my story, and
Mm,
telling my story really became, one of the major pieces of my healing journey, and yeah,
I
so
love that.
that's yeah.
I never thought about that. It's an interesting concept. I'm ferociously independent, right?
Mhm,
But it's amazing, you enter into a marriage and it's a partnership, and it sounds like yours was really a true partnership. And then boom, your life changes and gets rocked. And then all of the sudden, what do I do?
mm,
Right? All of these racing thoughts come into our minds, and we're still trying to go through the grieving process. And is there actually time to grieve? Because we have so many things we're thinking about and working on, right?
yeah. What was really great was that I had a manager who, um, gave me the space that I needed. I had a nurse practitioner who was willing to fill out the FMLA forms, the Family Medical Leave Act forms, to give me 6 weeks off of work after Carl died. And, um, and that time was so precious, so needed for me. Um, even after I got back to work, there were still some things that, I was taking care of, but those 6 weeks made a huge difference. Um, that first week, he died on a Sunday, and so I had his funeral service on, like, Wednesday and Thursday, and my manager had come to work or come to the viewing, and when she was there, I said, "I don't know when I'm coming back to work." Like, just very matter of factly, like, "Don't I don't know when you should expect me to return." And she was just like, "All right, well, just stay in touch, you know." Well, that Monday, I didn't show up for work, and she calls me and she's like, "What's happening here?" And I said, "Well, I told you I wasn't coming. I don't know when I'm coming back." And, and it was just, like, kind of one of those things where that's where my mind was. Or was not. It was not at work. I am not coming to work. And again, just having her support through that, it was huge. It was huge. And then even after I returned back to work, I was, part of the FML paperwork stated that I could have 3 days off every month, for a year. They just could not be consecutive days. And so I started taking off the 10th of every month, um, just because he had died on October 10th. And those became my Carl days. Those were
Mm,
days where I didn't do anything. Um, I knew that I couldn't work those days. My mind just wasn't going to be there. So it wasn't going to happen. Um, and so, yeah, that is what helped as well.
wow. So, you know, we're grief is an ongoing thing, right? There's
Mhm,
no date when we say, all right, fully healed, ready to
mhm,
roll. And it's different for everybody. And yours was very unexpected. And I'm sure
mhm.
that, adds to it a little bit, right?
Sure.
But it sounds like, you're going through this time, your own healing journey, and then you started sharing your story. So you hinted
Mhm,
on that a little bit ago, and I want to touch back on that because I think that's really important.
mhm.
For everybody's benefit, sharing your story, it's one of the hardest things you can do. It's very, it takes a lot of courage, bravery. But when you do, my God, it's a completely transformative thing that happens because it's very cathartic.
Mhm.
Don't you think, Amber, when you really share your story, and especially when you do it with a lens of helping other people going through a
Mhm.
similar situation as you better their lives in the process? What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I did not realize the power of storytelling until I started telling my story. And, and it was healing for me, like, that's who I was telling it for initially. Now it's at the point where, oh, I'm telling this, yes, to help other people and to let them know that you're not alone. The experiences that you have are real, they're valid, they they're normal even. They might not feel normal because we're not used to crying 24/7. We're not used to not having our mind intact because it's grief related. Um, we're not used to uh, just laying in bed all day. And, but those are real and those are normal responses to grief. It's when we don't stop those things, it's when we just decide we're never going to get out of bed again, or my life is just going to be me crying all the time. When we get in that mindset where we don't think that we can be healed from this, that we can't recover from it, then that is when we get stuck and things just don't they're not right. They're not good. Those are not normal feelings. So that's where the coaching will come in. I said I was a health and life coach. I'm also doing grief recovery coaching, and um, and that's where that will come in, is to help people realize that getting stuck is not where we want to be. We need to find ways to get unstuck. And if we aren't really in that stuck position, then still just how do we move forward? What are the next steps? And I will never say that there are, you know, the stages of grief aren't stages. Um, they are things that we may experience, but they're not necessarily stages, in my opinion. Um, and so when I do the grief coaching, it's not talking about the stages, it's talking through the process that people are experiencing. Where are you now? Let's get you, beyond that. Let's live through this part right now. So,
That's pretty powerful. We're not trees, we're not planted. So we don't have to be
mhm,
fixed, right? So
right.
can'ts and things like that, we need to remove those from our vocabulary. And I understand it's, when we're going through grief, we may think that, right? We may feel like we're fixed. My life is never going to be the same, all of these things. And you know what? Nobody says it will, and it's
Yeah,
okay. It's not supposed to be the same. And that kind of
right.
goes back to what we, mentioned about very first thing was change happens. It's inevitable. And
Mhm.
the thing about change is it's coming for everybody. I'm not trying to sound
Mhm.
doomy and gloomy, but
No.
it's the reality, is it not?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we don't know who it's going to be. who in our life is not going to be there next. Um, so yeah, it's you can't plan for it, you know. It's we I remember, oh goodness, it was 2003. My granddad was very ill. He was 89 years old. We knew he was, you know, not going to live very much longer. Well, his wife was also ill. She was actually in a coma with congestive heart failure at about the same time. And some of us from the family were at a camp, and uh, one evening while we were at camp, got word that granddad had died. Well, it was one of my uncles came over to the table and told my mom, and all he said was, "He's gone."
Mm.
And in her mind, she said, "No, she is gone." Like thinking it's supposed to be his wife, Lonnie, not dad, you know. Um, and so it was just a shock to her at that point. Well, then the next morning, because we didn't leave camp that night, we left the next morning or next day. But the next morning, we got word that she had died. And so within, I think it was like 20 hours, it was between
Wow.
their deaths. And um, anyway, it was, I guess, just an example of how we don't know who's going to go and when.
We don't. So I think this is a good reminder for everybody who's listening that tomorrow's not promised to any of us. And why not live our lives fully right now? And I'm a big proponent in taking action. It's one of the 5 steps in my GRASP method. And there's a reason. It's because today is the day. The past has already happened. You can't change it. You can't fix it. There's no modifying the past. The future is has not happened yet, and it is yet to be determined. But our future can start to be determined if we take action in the present and make the
Right.
most out of today. That's how you change the future, right? So I encourage everybody who's listening right now, hey, that big audacious goal, go for it. Hey, that dream job or that dream company that you want to start, today's the day. Take step one, make it happen. Whatever your goal is, to land a TEDx talk, to speak on stage, write a book, whatever, become an influencer. It doesn't matter what your goal is. Today is the only day in history that's ever mattered. And I really am a firm believer in this because tomorrow's not promised. And, I had a really I captured a really amazing quote from Les Brown this weekend. He was in my earpods as I was working out. Yes, I listen to motivational speeches when I work out. That's another topic for another day. But what he said really resonated with me. He said, regret weighs a ton.
Mm.
Regret weighs a ton, but habits weigh ounces.
Hmm.
Regret weighs a ton, habits weigh ounces. So we think about what is the future predictor of success. It's the habits right now, discipline. It's that discipline. I
Mhm.
think he said discipline weighs ounces. Pardon me. I may have gotten that mixed up.
Okay.
Discipline weighs ounces. Discipline weighs ounces. So the discipline we have today, it, we don't want to do it. It's called work, right? Maybe we feel like we're stuck, but you just take a little step in that direction of whatever your big audacious goal is or whatever it is. And then by the time you know it, enough consistency builds up, you are already there. And that's pretty powerful. So regret weighs a ton, discipline weighs ounces. And you know
Mhm.
what? It's so true, right? And now this doesn't necessarily pertain to grief, but it can in the sense of, you know what? I'm choosing today, even though it's really
Mhm.
hard, to move forward in some kind of capacity.
Oh,
Powerful,
absolutely. Absolutely.
powerful.
I One of the ways that I did not want to get stuck. That was one of my goals. I am not getting stuck in this. And so one of the things that I did was that every day I had at least 3 things that I had to get done. And one of those included getting out of bed, taking a shower, and getting dressed. Like, they all kind of went together. Um, and then, the second thing would be something around the house. What what needs cleaned? Is it the dishes that I'm doing today? Is it um, vacuuming, or, something had to be done. And then what needed to be done related to, making phone calls with, you know, all the places that you have to call after somebody dies. Um, just taking care of that one thing. If I got other things done, great. But I had to do it those 3 things at least every day, um, just so that I didn't get stuck and stay in bed all day, because that would have been very easy to do.
Exactly, right? It's easy to stay in that place, and
Mhm.
the longer we stay in those places, the worse off we get, right? That's not the
Yeah.
zone of growth. And it's hard, and it's not easy, and, since COVID, a lot of families have gone through tremendous amounts of loss, and it happens to us all, and that's the thing about it is you'll find a lot of people to help because everyone's going to need this type of, level of coaching eventually, unfortunately, right? That's the way of life is we all need this at some point in time in our lives. And, it's important to, work with somebody like you who's gone through this, and I'm a big believer in that too. I would never, for example, hire a personal trainer that has always been fit and in shape.
Mhm.
No. I want somebody that has been where I feel like I am and that can take me through that whole journey. Same thing with somebody who's a grief counselor or a life coach. You want somebody that has been through what you've gone through, come out the other side and been transformed by it in the process to the point now where they can actually help other people on their journeys. That's the
Yes.
powerful thing about this, right, Amber? Am I right?
Mhm. Oh, I think so. Yeah. Yeah,
Love it.
and I hired a business coach because they have started a business, right? So, yes, to all of
Exactly,
that.
exactly, right? So true, so true. Well, I feel, like again, this is something that everybody needs and it's okay, by the way, if anybody who is listening to this right now, maybe they are feeling stuck and maybe they're grieving and they're not sure where to go on this next step of their journey. I would love to hear I want the audience to walk away with some actionable tips that can help them today, Amber. So,
Sure.
if you could give some pearls of wisdom for us that can help somebody that is really suffering right now that needs that boost, what would you say to them?
Hmm. I would say that, first of all, the feelings that you have are real, they are normal. Secondly, don't get in the position where you're stuck, and if you do feel like you're stuck, please reach out to me, please. Um, it it doesn't have to be a coaching experience, but just to have somebody who knows where you're at to talk to. Um, I would love to coach, of course, as well, but even if it's just you need somebody to talk to for 30 minutes, I'm available. I can do that. The other thing is I I it's not a regret, although I do wish that I would have journaled. My mom asked me, "Are you gonna journal all of this stuff?" And I said, "No, I don't wanna read back on this." But now I that is something, not that I would have wanted to read back on it, but it would have helped me process, I think, a whole lot easier. And so I've written a journal workbook that goes along with my grief group coaching uh, program called Living Through Loss. And uh, it will be ready for publishing probably in the next few months. I bought a house last year, and so it is going through some major renovations at the moment due to some unexpected changes, more changes. And so I can't put timelines on anything right now. It's all house dependent at the
Don't tell me
moment.
it was a water pipe.
But it was
No!
actually.
Okay, everybody, I'm psychic. Just let you know. I was like, "What's the biggest change a house could have?" And I said, "Water pipe." Bless you. Oh, poor Amber. I'm just
Yeah, yeah. Well, it started with the mold that I found,
no.
and then we had to
Yes.
figure out what's causing this. So anyway, yes, it was a house. Um, so yeah, but back to action steps is, journal. That's where I wanted to go.
Yep.
I highly recommend journal. And if you need some help with some prompts for journaling, let me know. They're in the book. I just don't have it out yet, but I do have quite a few that are ready to go. So
I think that's such powerful advice, journal. I'm a big proponent in gratitude journaling and
mhm,
writing down your goals, writing down positive affirmations about
mhm,
yourself, journaling things that you're grateful for. And we know how transformative gratitude is. And this is not a
absolutely.
check the box type of thing, right? So this is
Mhm,
actually incorporating this gratitude and these reflective times into your daily life. And I think if we all do this on a mass scale, you know what? We're all going to be better as a result. It really does. You can look back at these things and get a sense of reflection and a deeper understanding of yourself as well when you do them and see actually the growth curve of how far you've come. And that gets you even more grateful. And all of a sudden, you realize that you have all the tools within you to heal.
yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
And I had this breakthrough 2 weekends ago, 1 weekend ago, um, that recovery is actually possible, that
Yeah.
we can recover from grief. Many people have said this. I had also been hearing the lie that, "Oh, we can't recover from grief," and that it's just this perpetual, lifelong thing that we have to deal with. It doesn't mean that I've forgotten Carl or that I don't think about him or that I don't, want to be able to talk to him and, play cards and the things we used to do. But it means that I'm not in that deep sorrow, that anguish that defines grief anymore. And um, and it was just so cool to finally be able to say, I have recovered, and healing really is possible when we're
Wow.
talking about grief.
Very powerful, very powerful. Again, this is achievable for anyone. So I love that so much. Amber, what a fantastic interview. Thank
Mm,
you so much for being on the show today,
thank
and
you
for
for having
imparting your
me.
words of wisdom, yeah, to the audience. I know everybody took a lot away from this. And again, this is something that applies to anybody because we're all going to go through personal or professional change in our lives. And at some point in time, we're all going to be hit with a big, bad personal change that comes into our lives and shakes us up a little bit. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's through a lens of loss. The best thing we can do is come together like this, share stories, form groups and communities, and openly talk about what we're going through. I hope everyone enjoyed this show. We will see you all on the next episode. Take care.